Welcome back to Relationships Over Reps, episode number 11. Today we're coming to you from Cleveland. Coach Parker and myself are enjoying a visit. And since we're in a visiting mindset, we invited one of our other friends to join us, Coach Chris Ruf of Baylor University. Welcome to the podcast, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for having me. Nice to visit with you guys.
It's always good to see you again, even if it's just on the screen. Coach, would you mind telling our listeners a little bit of what you're doing at Baylor these days?
Yeah, like Coach said, my name's Chris Ruf. I'm at Baylor University. I'm our Director of Athletics Performance for Olympic sports, so oversee our staff that works with basically all the sports besides football and men's and women's basketball. And been here coming up on 19 years, so I've been blessed to be at this great spot for this long. We've got a great staff here that does amazing work and learn from them every day, and it's been fun watching them grow and coach their teams up and their student athletes up and help set them up for success in the sporting arena and then for life after sport.
Awesome. Thank you for putting that life after sport, because that's kind of the focus of what we've been talking about this summer is coaching our athletes for the sport of life, in addition to performance on the field or on the track or on the mat or on the platform. So, Coach, you just said 19 years. I don't think that's possible since it's been almost 2 decades since we worked together.
I know, that's crazy. Time flies.
Yeah. So for our listeners, Coach Ruf joined me down when I had a private facility down in Sarasota. Back in, I guess it's going to be 2000s.
2007.
2007. He was splitting time between me and USF. And I think I got the best of that because he did a great job with our athletes and great job. And I got to expose him to the world of Olympic weightlifting, so to speak, a little more than he had planned, I think.
No, it was a great experience, great learning experience for me. I had an awesome time doing it.
We're glad to have you. So, Coach, Coach Parker and I were talking a little bit when I was here yesterday visiting him. We were talking about the importance of having relationships with your athletes when you're trying to put them in the best positions to succeed, whether in the weight room or on the field or on the track. Because sometimes our athletes come in and they're down. They're just not in the mood to work hard. So, Coach Parker, when you have an athlete that comes in and they're just not their normal self, they're down, they're not really putting out a lot of effort, they're not really communicating, how do you approach that?
It all depends on his prior history with me. If he's a warrior, then I just kind of get him to the side and say, look, this is not like you today. What's wrong? Is there something I can help with? We got to get that effort back up there where it always has been for you. And you got to realize all these other guys look up to you. So what they see you do or not do, they're going to think that's okay. And we'll have a whole room full of people that are kind of dragging on it. But I think you have to find out, is it something personal? Their girlfriend just broke up with her. Or they've got a sick parent, or they just had a failing grade in the course that they thought they were doing well in. It could be so many things rather than them. It's not usually directed at just, I don't want to work out. It manifests itself in the effort they put into their workouts. But I think you got to find out what's bothering them rather than just having a one-size-fits-all critique.
Yep, I think that's important. That has a lot to do with the whole idea of authentic coaching and having those relationships. Coach Ruf, I'm going to give you a potential scenario. You're getting ready for a track meet with your sprinters. And we all know how important the optimal levels of arousal are for those sprinters come those heats and the finals. And you just noticed that it's not there right there. They just seem like they're down. How do you approach that?
Well, I think the firstly most important, I'd let their event coach handle it. That at that point, it's really me not being a sport coach. That's not really my place. I would certainly, feel like I've got a good enough relationship with our track and field staff where I could, if I'm seeing something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, I can communicate that with them because I think the reality is at a track meet, they may not get to see that athlete through their whole warm up. They may just see part of it because there's so many different things going on at once. I think in my role in that situation is to be a facilitator of communication and sharing information with their event coach, and then we can let their event coach handle it as needed. They're going to be the ones that have the the better relationship and responsibility on meet day to do those types of things. Um, and then again, I think Coach Parker hit it on the head. It goes back to knowing that athlete and having a good relationship with them. This could be, are they flat because of something that's going on externally that maybe we don't know about yet, or they've been battling with, and you're trying to manage it and ride the wave out, so to speak, or is it something physical that's happened because maybe they're under recovered or we overworked them a little bit, or they're a little overstressed out from academic load, and we just didn't recognize it soon enough, and it manifests on that meet day.
Well,
Um,
I think you put out an important point too. Not is it only important for you to have a good relationship with your athlete where you can notice these type of things, but a good relationship with the event coach or the sport coach where you can communicate those things, so the two of you together can hopefully bring things back to a level that's needed. So we talked about that last week. Coach Parker and I were joined by Coach Mike Boyle and talked about the importance of having a good relationship with your head coach or your sport coach to get the most of your athletes. So it's good to hear you say that as well.
Coach, he said a key word that I didn't even think about. It is exactly right. If that kid might be overtrained and not have it inside to give that day. So that's something you need to investigate before, along with anything else. That is right up there. Possible reasons for a lethargic performance.
And we know that the physiological and the psychological interact with each other every single day in everything they do, from daily life to sports performance to training. And I think, the research, I remember a lot of the research being done on overtraining back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think Dr. Kreider was doing it down in Memphis back then. But I remember I was up at OTC for a training camp, and I was listening to some of the presentations, and they were talking about how to prevent overtraining with their athletes, and not just physiological burnout, but psychological burnout as they were getting ready for the various different trials for the 2000 Olympics. And part of the research was talking about that some of the effects of overtraining, the physiological effects, were depression, lackadaisical, they had psychological effects too. So I think it's really important that with all of the technology out there, we can put some time into actually monitoring what's going on physiologically, so then we can make the proper psychological adjustments, if that makes sense. I remember way back when, I think you had me out there, I want to say it was 2009 for your clinic, Coach Ruf. I'm not sure of the date, but I remember you hooked me up to one of the Omega waves. Do you remember that?
yes, sir.
And to get but I'm sure there's a lot more advanced stuff out there now. But I still think going back in my setting in the high school, one of the things I look at is the warm up. Yeah, how they sound during the warm up. Do they are they talking a lot, chat, or are they real quiet when they come in? When they're doing their skipping or their movements, does it sound like a pitter patter, or does it sound like a piece of wet meat hitting the ground when you drop it out of the refrigerator? Those are things that we can look at. What kind of things do you use at Baylor as far as for assessing physical recovery that could then be used from the psychological side as well?
Yeah, some of our staff will we'll keep wellness monitoring with some teams. It just depends on the team and the sport and everything. So they'll use that. Now it's obviously a bit more subjective. And then a lot of our speed power teams will do some regular jump testing. So you can have that as a window or insight into where they're at physically from a readiness standpoint. They're not gonna get tested daily on that. So you're looking more at trends over time and whatnot and seeing that.
Gotcha.
Simple things that you can do if you don't have used equipment. You measure their vertical jump, you measure their resting bolts. And if those show a change from the baseline that you've established, then you need to look at probable overtraining.
Yeah, we have at the high school setting, I used to use the just jump mat a lot because I know there are some issues with some validity and stuff like that, as opposed to like say a Vertec or a Force platform. But it was nice for me because I could rotate 20 guys through in the morning in first period at 7:30 in the morning in about 5 minutes and figure out and look at the trends real quick. You know, some of my smarter athletes would figure out that if they didn't jump as high as they normally do, that squats might not be as heavy as that day. So we made it a competition as well. So I got max effort out of the guys. So let's switch gears a little bit. Coach Ruf, let's say you're in the weight room with some of your athletes and one of your athletes is definitely a little, how should I say, out of sorts and snapping back at his teammates. Just, what we used to call a bad attitude. What's one way you might deal with that? And this is an athlete I'm going to say that you have a good relationship with.
Yeah, I think first thing is to have a quick conversation with them, try to pull them aside and get them away from wherever the action's at, him or her away from wherever the action's at, so you can find out what's going on. Because if it's somebody you do have a good relationship with, and then and they're out of sorts, there's something likely going on personally with them, or maybe they had a really bad practice or rough practice and didn't perform how they wanted to. And just frustrated and stressed out. I think just the big thing is getting them to step away from the situation for a minute, take a few deep breaths, and try to clear what's happened before and reframe everything. And it's like, hey, let's start anew and get back going with try to forget and put in the past what just happened and the things that may be causing that. Acknowledge that they're there, but say, hey, for these next 30 to 45 minutes, we need to do our best to put that aside, and then we can come revisit that after the work's done.
I think that's great advice. It reminds me of the old saying, praise in public and discipline in private, or criticize in private, or give the feedback in private. But definitely pulling them aside, I think, is huge. Because one of the things that one of my old coaches, Joe Canan at Manatee, told me about his coaching philosophy, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is never paint the kid into a corner where there's 100% chance that there's going to be some negative things said or acted on that then you have to go ahead and discipline. And Coach Parker and I were talking about that the other day. Coach, you ever been in a situation like that, Coach Parker?
Yes, I have. And again, depending on the athlete, I got to call him aside and say, look, you think anybody wants to work out with you without attitude today? And you complaining and griping to everybody about everything. Hey, man, dragging everybody down. Get right. Be the Rich Lansky I know. Be the Chris Ruf that I know. It encourages other guys. If you're feeling down, depressed about something, and you feel like you got to fight your way out of it, just think about this. Just try to pick a teammate. It might be having a little bit of a rough time. Maybe it's playing time has been cut, whatever. And probably lift him up. And a rising tide lifts all boats. By lifting someone else up, then you forget your problem. You don't have time to think about your problem. fixated on his and solving his problem. And that way, you yourself develop a much better attitude for that day.
Yeah, I think really important with what Coach just said too is the way you phrase it or position it is you're better than this. I have a expectation because you're such a good hard worker, you're such a good guy, or you're such a good teammate. So you're instead of saying, "But why are you acting like a jerk?" You're coming back and saying, "Hey, this isn't you. You're much better than that." And you put it back, and all of a sudden you put a job or give them a task to do because you're showing that you trust them and that you respect them for what they can do, as opposed to saying, "Hey, cut the crap and get to work." That's not going to get us where we want to be.
Because I just remembered this. That I have done this before and it worked. I called him aside and tell him, "Hey, Joe Smith is really struggling today. All right, he's got some real personal problems. Everybody here trusts you. Would you help your teammate out by trying to get him his mind right, encourage him, and I don't even mention that they are the problem that day." And that has worked, I think, every single time I've used it. Unless the guy is just a complete jerk, which you wouldn't want on the team anyway, that works.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I learned real quick in the high school setting when I transitioned is 14 to 18-year-olds don't understand sarcasm, so don't use it. It's going to be used. It's going to be taken the wrong way all the time. Be honest and be authentic. Coach Ruf, anything to add on that?
No, I think Coach hit it spot on.
Hey, he does that a lot for us. Been a good mentor. Coach, let's talk about something as far as when you're dealing with your new athletes that come into your program, whether it's one of the Olympic sports that you oversee and the staff that you oversee, or maybe it could even be a new staff member that comes into the program or an athlete that you're coaching one-to-one when they first come in. What are some ways that you are able to build rapport and establish trust and expectations while still maintaining your standards?
Yeah, try to be very honest with them up front about what the expectations are and what I'm about, what we're about. That way, if things do go, something happens where things aren't going well or whatnot because of something that the athlete may or may not be doing, then we can always default back to, hey, listen, this is how I told you how it was going to be. This is what we need to do to be able to get the job done. This is how we're going to operate. This is the type of effort that we need to have. This is the type of focus we need to have. Technically, this is how we need to be. If we do these things, we can build on it. And sometimes, we have athletes that for whatever reason they don't listen, or and it's not always bad things too. It's you have that athlete that's a really really incredibly hard worker, and they're their own worst enemy, because there's times where you're trying to get them to pull back and be like, hey, you're doing too much and you're going to pay for it down the road. And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to let that thing happen, and they don't get that wake up call until maybe they get injured. And it's like, oh wait, I was doing too much. You guys told me this was going to happen. This happened. I've got to change my ways a little bit. But want to be real honest with them, and then also with that, meet them where they're at. Try to have a really good understanding and conversation with them about what their past experiences are before they come in. And in track and field, where I would do a lot of my work in, there's a really wide variety of backgrounds when it comes to strength training or being in the weight room. And we've got kids from the U.S. and the way the college system is now, we've got transfer portal student athletes that come through that have been at another school or maybe two other schools before they come in. We've got international student athletes that maybe have zero experience and are, quite frankly, fearful of what might happen in the weight room, or have some preconceived notions about what it might do to them physically in a negative standpoint. So it's being able to talk through those things and find out where they're at, and sometimes you have to take things a little bit more slowly with them so that they can feel at ease and comfortable with what's going on, and learn and develop some buy-in and trust that way. Outside of that, try to just have a little brief conversations with them to understand who they are, where they're from, what the culture is like, where they're from, what are the things that make them tick, what are the things they like. I'm getting older and older, so you could always usually fall back on the pop culture references and all that, and I feel like I'm not quite as strong with those as I used to be, unless I try to can use movies a little bit, but yeah, try to find out where they're coming from, what they like, and build a little bit of rapport and relationship there. I think Coach Altoff, um, he always had this quote that he would say, like, so I had early in my career, I hadn't had a lot of experience working with female athletes, and about the time that met him and we first started working together was around the time that I started having more involvement in the female athlete side of things, and he always said, if you can get a female athlete to laugh at you, you've made a really strong connection there. So try to do a good job of making fun of myself and get a few laughs out of it, and that can help build some bridges, I think.
Yep. No, I definitely think that. I think both Coach Parker and myself are masters of self-deprecating humor as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not with somebody that don't agree with.
No, you have to establish that relationship first. But I like the fact that one overriding theme that I got from what you just said, Coach Roof, was one size doesn't fit all. So there's different ways to approach that process of building trust. I wanted to just comment on one thing that you just said about working with female athletes. I remember one of my mentors, Lynn Jones with USA Weightlifting. He was our national coaching director, and he was also the head women's coach. And when he took over the women's program, this is going into, so this is late 90s, I guess, going into 2000. He had said the biggest difference he found between training male weightlifters and female athletes were that if a male had a bad meet, one of the male athletes had a bad meet or a bad outing, he'd be worried about his spot, his position, his residency up at the training center. And if a female had one, she was more worried about whether the coach wasn't going to care about training her anymore, whether he was going to desert. Now, again, this is late 90s, early 2000s, but I don't know how much of that has really changed. Coaches?
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. I think if you're able to build good relationships with a female athlete, they'll run through a brick wall for you. Um, they tend, um, I think probably will trust things a little bit more as long as they know you care about them. Whereas the guys probably um, maybe don't do that quite as quickly. Maybe I could be wrong there, but we try to make the weight room a safe space, so to speak, where, like, hey, you're going to come in here, you're going to work hard. It's going to be challenging. You're going to be push yourself. You're going to get pushed. The guys, I think, tend to tend to believe they're capable of more than what they're capable of a lot of times. And where I think a lot of times the females don't believe that. You'll say maybe you're doing a test day or something like that, or you want to move their weight up, and you know that they're well capable of doing it, and with ease, but it's something that they've never done before, and they see the number or hear the number, and then they all of a sudden think, I don't know if I can do that, and in your heart you're like, yes, you can do this. You're gonna smash this. So it's finding out a way to bridge that gap and getting them to believe that they can be better than maybe what they think they are, or that it's not quite as scary as they think it is to attempt something new. Whereas with a guy, they'll be like, put 20 more pounds on, I'll do it, coach, and then they'll get stapled, even though you go, I know you're not going to be able to do this. You don't say that to them, but you try to temper that enthusiasm a little bit.
Yeah, I think the weight room is such a great place for female athletes as far as self self-esteem and
100%.
self-confidence. I remember you showing me a video of one of your athletes, one of your female athletes, doing weighted pull-ups, weighted chin-ups with like I think it was either 45 or 245s for a couple reps a couple years ago. And I remember showing that video to my girls' basketball team at Manatee, and all of a sudden they were motivated. They're like, "Yeah, well, let's start doing more pull-ups." And I had one of my girls lacrosse players 2 years ago knock out 10 strict hang pull-ups. And I showed that to my football team and said, guys, you're slacking. You know, I also saw at the next level, I was fortunate enough a couple of years ago to help one of my friends out with girls collegiate basketball team at a local university for a while. And, smaller group, but the same things that we've seen over the years with the high school and stuff. You got to establish relationships, and you got to know what the hot buttons are. For the one person who's fighting to keep her scholarship, to the other one who's trying to maybe get a shot at the next level and make their national team back home at a different country. Once you found those things out, it was a lot easier to get the buy-in. So I'm sure it's the same with men too. What do you think, Coach Parker?
We are faced with a whole catalog of issues every day that we need to be able to handle and have a solution for, and depending on the kid, depending on our relationship with the kid. And I used to say this, kids, a lot, is get your expectations up where mine are. Don't let me believe in you more than you believe in yourself. So I know you can do a lot better. So time for you to get those expectations up there so you can perform better. You can only perform to the level of your expectation. And it doesn't look like you have very high expectations today. We need to get that up there. And we don't have all day to do it.
Words of wisdom. Coach Ruf, we're hitting that half-hour mark, and I really appreciate you taking time out on a Sunday morning. I know it's family day. Knowing you're probably going to do a little work later too, though. You taking care of the livestock?
Oh, yes, all that's done for the morning. So we just
I'll have to send you pictures of my two tight ends that you met when you came down, because both those cows have outgrown their standard, and they look like offensive linemen who haven't missed too many meals.
Yeah, I was gonna say yours probably look a little bit more plump than ours do.
Yeah, they're our hay person calls them bougie cows. They're spoiled. Well, it was great to see you, talk to you, and I know Coach Parker and you're one of the names that always comes up when we're talking about people that do a great job with their athletes. So I wanted to share that with our listeners as well. Coach Parker.
Coach, thank you for taking time out for us. And it's an honor to know you. And like, you are preeminent among strength coaches. And you helped a lot of kids and a lot of coaches, me being one of them. And I wish you nothing but continued success.
And I will second that, Coach Chris. And I know we always talk about lifelong learners. Just so you know that Coach Parker's still doing the learning. You know what he wanted to do when I got here yesterday?
Ask you questions.
Well, he wanted to watch weightlifting and critique every lift we watched at the World Championships and the European Championships on YouTube. He's got more weightlifting on his TV than I have on mine.
No, I appreciate the kind words from you both, and you guys both mean a lot to me and have been instrumental in my learning process and everything. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be on here with you guys this morning.
Well, you take care of yourself. Give my best to the family.
Yes, sir. You guys too. Thank you.
Take care, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. And for our audience, thank you for sharing this. This has been a treat for me because I get to actually do the podcast in person with Coach Parker here, and we got one of our friends on. So please let us know what you think about it, and please let us know some topics you'd like us to address over the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, this is Coach Rich Lansky and
Dr. Parker
saying, have a great day, be authentic, and help your athletes achieve their dreams. So you hold them in your hands. Take care.